Just a quick note before we start this episode. It was recorded about a month ago, so before the Netflix stock crash, before Netflix rose their prices, before Amazon rose their prices, and also before the recent Paramount Plus Day announcements. So some facts have changed, but I don't really feel like our opinions have. The right winner still won this bracket, so enjoy and don't yell at us for the things that we're no longer correct about. Okay.
Welcome to the Intercut podcast, the weekly show going over the TV, movies, and entertainment that people can't cut away from. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, he's available for free with your library card. It's Arturo Zurita.
Oh, I like that one. I will take that one gladly.
Yeah. We are getting into our favorite streaming services, the best streaming services, and we wanted to bring on somebody who's watched a little bit from all of them. Returning to the show, known internationally as Hotstar, it's Elliot from Movie Files. Thanks for coming back, Elliot.
Thank you guys for having me. It's funny, the last time I went to a library, speaking of library cards, was to use the restroom because I'm too busy watching movies and shows at home. So gotta read some more books out there, kids.
Or run more movies. That's the beauty
or
of it.
just keep watching movies.
Get that hoopla.
Yeah,
get that
there's always going to be more movies.
I mean, I do watch my movies in captions, so I guess I'm still taking in the reading aspects of
there you
media.
go.
So, yeah, here you go.
I like it.
Yep.
I count it.
Exactly, yeah. As long as you have the subtitles on, it counts as reading too.
There you go.
Anyway, in a little bit, we will talk about Bloopy, Mubi, Tubi. Only one of those names is made up. But first, make sure you're subscribed to the Intercut podcast, either the video podcast on youtube.com/intercutpod or the audio podcast available on most podcatchers. Also, follow Intercut on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are at IntercutPod. That's at IntercutPod, and that is short for podcast. We're also IntercutPod on Patreon, where you can support the show for as little as $1 per month.
Appreciate
and be sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. When you do, it makes me happier than when Apple TV Plus extends your free trial. Tim Cook's not doing a whole lot of that anymore, is he?
Nah, he's done.
Nah. Yep.
Shout out to Hey Silver Fox for their review of our podcast on Apple Podcasts, saying Intercut is a great podcast. Quote, found this podcast a couple months ago and binged the entire backlog. Great insight and commentary from the host and their occasional guests. These guys watch everything, and they've introduced me to a lot of movies I didn't know were out there. Love the bracket episodes. Keep it up. Thanks, Silver Fox. You keep it up too, man. Keep listening. We'll keep making them. We're making bracket episodes right now. Speaking of which, let's get into it. We're talking about the best streaming services in our bracket this week, because with the proliferation of all the different brands and pluses and services out there, it's hard to navigate. Where should you put your money? Are you going to drop cable box price money on all these different streaming services? Not with our guidance, you're not. We are going to get down to which ones are most worth your money on this podcast. But first we have to talk about, like, what is the criteria for the best streaming service? What even makes an ideal streaming service? Elliot, why don't you start us off? What are you looking for when you sign up for a streaming service?
Yeah, well, number one, price. Price is the big thing
sir.
for me in regards to what am I paying for, how often if I'm getting original content, and also what IPs, existing IPs, are you providing me for that cost of service. So price, originality, and some established IPs that I can go back to as comfort food for when we have days when we have to stay at home for 3 weeks at a time.
Absolutely. Yeah. What about you, Art? What are you looking for?
My number one thing is what they're hosting. It's got to be what's offering practically the most bang for your buck. If it's just a bunch of garbage, then chances are you're probably not going to see it. But I think we have a good balance this time around, especially by this year. The first of the month, having the streaming services drop a bunch of oldies, but probably goodies that you haven't seen, and then all the new content that's coming out. The second's got to be the navigation on some of these things. It was just last year, we barely had some of them finally showcasing in 4K. I'm a big fan of HBO, but I know some people know it's death the moment you try to rewind 15 seconds. You might as well start the movie over. So I know navigation is a massive, massive deal, especially with its compatibility. Like, are you going to be able to see it on the go? How much data is it taking away from you as well? Does it work on certain apps? Because that's another big issue. A lot of our favorite ones weren't on Roku. they weren't on certain TVs, and like that's always a debate that's going to be happening, especially for a lot of the.
I've got a Samsung TV, and that limits my options, and I use my PlayStation for streaming. That also limits my options. Like I'm out here with no way to watch the Criterion channel unless I use my laptop.
It's same, and you start like casting it from one thing to another. It's like back in the days when you had like an antenna and you had to hold it with like
a bunch of cables behind the TV.
Yeah, it's crazy. So those would be my top two there, and then just to wrap it up, definitely the price factor, because I am personally someone who believes that with all this, it's turned into leasing. You know, I think all three of us are pretty big on physical media and understanding that aspect of it. They really want you to be renting these movies, like it was said in Mank. The beauty of the movies is that they watch it, but they don't own them. It always comes back to us. And I worry that the prices are at the entry point right now, but Netflix is at 18. And who knows how much higher and higher and higher, and eventually, you know, we're going to see how they're able to afford all these big movies when these things start becoming $30 a month.
Yeah, we will talk about some of these price points and whether or not we think they'll stay at those price points, because that is certainly something that's going to be interesting as the streaming wars continue on. I think both you guys have it right with talking about price, talking about user interface. I mean, like HBO Max is definitely one of the best content libraries out there, but like Art said, like try rewinding to a specific scene and good luck with that. But when it comes to content, you know, I think there's a couple different questions there. There's like, are you in it for quality of content? Like, are you just looking for 3 or 4 really great things per year or per month? Or is it that quantity? Do you want to be able to have like a cable box in your streaming app and choose from whatever you want whenever you want? But there's also some like lesser features that sometimes get overlooked when it comes to these streaming apps. It's something that I really love is the ability to customize subtitles. And, you know, if you can increase the size of them or change the color of them, that just makes the process of watching a movie sometimes so much more pleasurable. Art, in the past, we've talked about like how cool it is when they make alternate versions, like the IMAX versions that are available on some Disney Plus releases now, or director's commentaries. I know you wish more services did stuff like that.
Oh, I wish they had all of that stuff, but
behind
again,
the scenes, where are those at?
Behind, you know, and they have a lot of those tabs where you just go to the right and you have the extra. You know, you're able to go to the cast and crew. You click there and you get to see everything else that they have. Netflix has collections. I think there's a lot of room to grow, but I think, you know, once those price points go up, that's where all of that's gonna pivot to, because they've already stripped them from a lot of the 4Ks that you buy. Looking at you, A24. So I feel like that's going to be the digital exclusives that they're going to have on some places. But Criterion, definitely, they're the ones killing it on that regard right now. But endless possibilities when it comes to streaming.
Yep.
It's just limited right now.
For sure. You know, sometimes it's simple stuff too. Like, not every streaming service offers the ability to have different profiles. And like, you know, just speaking as somebody whose dad is now poisoning his a Netflix algorithm, like it's helpful to be able to separate that stuff. Elliot, any other like smaller features that you like in a streaming service?
I think you guys hit on the big one for me is the compatibility with other devices, right? Your smart TV, your phone, your Roku, your Apple TV. Is it available on those streaming platforms versus, again, like we kind of joked around, the old days of having your VCR, your DVD, your PlayStation, all those cords behind the TV, and you have so many TiVo. There's so many remotes, there's so many passwords, there's so many logins. So I just love that one, you know, you can find your streaming platform on whatever device you're ultimately streaming from. That's something I take the little things like that into account.
Absolutely. So we came up with a list of 16 streaming services to put in our bracket, the 12 most popular, and 4 others that Art and I found pretty interesting. But there are a few notable streaming services that we left out of our package. I think the most popular one that we're not going to be talking about in the bracket is Starz, which when I was doing my research, I found out it has 30 million subscribers, not an insignificant number, but I don't know. I don't know the last show that I watched on Starz. Can either of you name something that's airing on Starz right now?
I think we jokingly said that I think 29 million of those subscribers don't even realize they still have Starz.
Exactly.
It came with whatever partnership their cell phone company probably has.
Epix is another one that I know a lot of people have or have had at some point. They have some interesting stuff occasionally. There's a show from Steve Conrad that with Ben Kingsley the name is slipping me, like something limited. I don't know. I watched it, but I don't think I've watched anything else on Epix. Topic gets some really interesting stuff. A lot of international TV shows and films like that.
That's going to be one we slept on. I'm going to tell you, that is going to be one we slept on. I think in 2 years' time, Topic's going to be on the list.
Interesting.
There's a good chance if we do this list again, in a year or two, Topic, because they got Philly DA miniseries that you and I both really like, the docuseries.
They picked up a lot of good Sundance and...
Yeah, they're making their name in that kind of independent world. Kind of alluded to them at the top, Hoopla and Canopy. Both of them are free with your library card, and that's just... such a pleasure. Like, they have really interesting libraries, a lot of good films that, I personally know that I've wanted to catch up on. When Art and I were doing our whole Satoshi Kon binge, Hoopla was like a huge benefit. I feel like half his films were on there. So yeah, I like Hoopla a lot. I actually kind of feel like I wanted to... There's part of me that wanted to put Hoopla on this list, but because it is just sort of like... a bunch of free library card movies, I don't know if it necessarily would go so far.
That plus also I would say Tubi, that does make the list, is a bit better in terms of you don't actually need a library card, an address, all these different things that, are still obstacles to obtain. But we do love those services.
Yeah, and it's not just the library card. Your library also has to opt into it. I know that was a problem for me, not being able to access Canopy. So, yeah, it's not available to everybody. BritBox. A service that you can subscribe to that has some of the best British TV. I know my girlfriend's parents are really into BritBox. A lot of people are really into BritBox. We didn't put that on there. PBS. A lot of people love their Masterpiece Theater and their documentary selections. You mentioned Acorn TV. Art, I know your favorite, PureFlix, didn't make the cut.
No. How am I supposed to watch all of my God's Not Dead quadrilogy without that?
All right.
They're doing strong, though. That's what's so surprising to me.
Yeah.
Just how strong they are.
All right, but I think we're ready to actually tackle the bracket and get into this list. Talk about what the best streaming services are. We have our matchups seeded 1 through 16 in terms of subscriber count these services are. So we're starting off with the big guns and maybe the little guy on the list. Netflix versus Mubi in our 1 to 16 matchup. And Netflix, of course, the juggernaut with 214 million global subscribers. They are up against Mubi here, which doesn't have a publicly released subscriber count yet. But I would say that Mubi has among the best content curators in streaming. They're not just adding movies to add more movies the way that Netflix does. They are hand-selecting overlooked and underloved indie and foreign films, and they're even getting into the distribution game with titles like Azor and Sweat and What Do We See When We Look at the Sky, which I believe was a Gotham Award nominee this year. Just today, before we recorded, they announced that they acquired The Match Factory, which will give them access to an even bigger catalog of beloved foreign films like Tony Erdmann and Drive My Car.
Damn.
So, a lot of quality on Mubi. It's also the only one of these streaming services to launch their own theater-going program with Mubi Go, where you can sign up for the streaming service and get access to one movie in theaters per week, according to their rotating selection. So a pretty cool thing that is hopefully going to be rolling out into more cities in 2022. I think it's only available in New York right now. Mubi at $10.99 per month is still more expensive than a basic Netflix plan at $8.99 per month, although Netflix's plans go up to $17.99. Art, are you going to show Mubi any love here, or is it just chum for the Netflix waters?
I mean, I do show Mubi a lot of love because everything that you described is something that would go up against another one that we have on here, which is the Criterion collection. And I'm almost like, the way you described Mubi, if it was going up Criterion, like, I thought that one was set and I had a lot of positives. What Mubi's doing is really cool. They went from being the service that only had 30 movies and every day one would leave and a new one would enter, and that was the way they did things. I'm very intrigued how they're going to expand this plan that they have. I think they need to move it to more cities, so then that way more people start signing up for the service. But I agree with you 100%. Some of the best curations that they have there. Let's not forget, Cannes was theirs. They picked up damn near everything out of Cannes this last year. in a couple of years, I think they're really going to be a player in the game. I know that they've swept a lot of YouTubers. They're really good in that integration space as well, with sponsoring and supporting YouTubers with ads. But I'm keep it a buck. It's Netflix. It's Netflix. Like, Netflix is not just picking up a bunch of content and movies and TV shows. They are also picking up stuff that Mubi would be holding. You know, they do have one of your favorite movies from last year, The Disciple. They have the Scorsese flicks. They have a bunch of movies from directors who would also be on Mubi. Mubi is specifically curated for the film connoisseur. They still have things to enjoy on Netflix, whereas I'm sure other family members of the film connoisseur will be like, I ain't watching the stuff that's on Mubi. So for that, obviously it has to be Netflix, but I think we do this bracket again next year, and I'm rooting for Mubi. I hope it can do a lot of good things.
Same, man. You know, Mubi is being pretty aggressive on their pickups, and hopefully it's going to just grow in the next year. Yeah. But I think you're right. I think we all got to go with Netflix in that first matchup. Getting into the 8 versus 9 matchup, an interesting pair here. We have Discovery Plus going up against Apple TV Plus. Discovery Plus has 20 million subscribers. It's a surprisingly big platform, even though they don't have, necessarily the big hit TV shows or blockbuster movies. What they do have are home improvement shows, nature documentaries, true crime investigations, everything from Chip and Joanna games to diners, drive-ins, and dives. And all of it for just $6.99 a month. Ooh. Compared to Apple TV Plus, which hasn't yet released their subscriber numbers, but thanks to those free trials that they were giving out with every new Apple device purchased, a lot of people had or have access to Apple TV Plus. Maybe this is just a little bit of inside baseball, but when it comes to their app and their screeners app particularly, it is very easy to interact with, a very, very good user interface. They've had a lot of years practicing on Apple TVs. Mm-hmm. Apple TV Plus right now is only $4.99 a month. That's sort of an interesting question because it does not seem like that is a price point that is sustainable when you're making shows like The Morning Show and Foundation and even more of these big shows that are set to come. But TV is not how Apple makes its money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So... Right. That might be an affordable streaming service for at least a few more years. Elliot, where would you land between Apple TV Plus and Discovery Plus?
So looking at this bracket, I think this is the toughest first round matchup right now because price point very similar, like you mentioned, $4.99 and $6.99. But also the thing that I like about Discovery Plus is it's that comfort streaming app. It's the app for work from home, parents that keep their kids and watch their kids at home. It's if I were a dentist, if I had to pick a streaming service as to play on my TVs while my patients are waiting to get their teeth cleaned, is Discovery Plus because it has all the stuff you mentioned from cooking food to fixing your house. I mean, this is the comfort. Yes, this is the dentist's #1 streaming app in the world, if I'm sure of it. But Apple comes. I think it's so underrated, man. I think the content they to me are the company that does the quality over quantity. They have great quality television programming. They're having big directors and actors and everyone that wants to make a show or movie on their platform. So this is a tough one for me. I got to go with Apple because that price, that $4.99 price, like Art said, that price will not be staying for the foreseeable future. But for right now, when we talked about bang for your buck, I think it's Apple TV Plus. But Discovery Plus, man, they're doing some big things.
Discovery helped HBO. Like, how embarrassing is that?
Yeah,
very true.
That's insane. I know Discovery's probably the one that's making the most amount of money. They probably have the craziest watch hours because of the content that they have. They have already cracked the mode that in all of their home improvement or food network stuff, they're not even making new episodes. They're just bringing the contestants to rewatch the old episodes and catching their reactions. Like, it has come completely full circle from the YouTube copyright days of reacting to things to now actually being the content. Discovery's just going to continue to grow. But I agree with Elliot, and also to piggyback off something that Zach had said earlier, which you both hit on perfectly. HBO used to be that. And I still love HBO, but HBO used to be that thing that you knew if it had those 3 letters on it, it was going to be quality content. But with the Max label, we'll get to that, it changed a little bit. Apple does seem to have that when they're putting something out, even if it's not for you, they're at least putting out something that they're standing behind. Zach had mentioned how out of all of these services, one thing that we appreciate behind the scenes is that it's not just the easiest to be able to access their screeners. You don't even have to ask for them. How we were talking about sometimes we go to the screener app and that's our breaking news in learning about some of these shows. But they're in 4K also. They're streaming in the best possible quality. It is very easy. I am going with Apple TV. And I think they're going to have that price point for a little bit because where they're really making their money, and this is what we were mentioning earlier, is that there's also a secret device wars that's happening. It's not just the streaming wars. This is the device wars. Apple doesn't just want you to watch their shows. You are watching their shows on the Apple TV app that includes Apple TV Plus if you're on your Apple TV. They want you to sign up for everything else through them because, as I'm sure most people know, Apple takes 30%. So if you get Prime through Apple, however much you're paying for Prime, Apple gets to pocket 30. You're doing Netflix through them, they get to pocket that. That's why there's this really big debate right now on a lot of these streaming services not wanting to be on a device, not wanting to be through these different channels. And right now, Apple, Hulu, and Prime are the ones who right from the jump knew that. Hey, get these other streaming services as a bundle underneath us. They're already playing the cable game, and I think Apple, in my opinion, may be winning it.
I mean, they've got their hardware in so many stores that, or not stores, homes, that they've got such a leg up. And even if you go into Apple TV Plus right now, you see content from Netflix and stuff too, because they're trying to be that hub.
They're trying to be that.
It's definitely given them a big leg up. We are all movie guys. We're all TV guys. We're all content guys. Of course, we're going to go with Apple TV Plus here. But if my mom was in charge of this bracket, Discovery Plus might go all the way. But I think we're going to let Apple TV Plus win this round. In our next matchup, it is Peacock versus Paramount Plus. Peacock had 54 million signups as of July. I feel like it sometimes gets forgotten, but it is one of the bigger players in the streaming world. I will say the app is very confusing to use. I constantly find myself not knowing where to go for the thing that I want. But I will give them props for not just being named Universal Plus. On the other hand, Paramount Plus has 47 million global subscribers to the various Viacom CBS platforms. I don't know if it's all been streamlined yet into Paramount Plus by number, but And Paramount Plus kind of getting their legs under them still. They, in terms of their 2021 releases, they had that SpongeBob movie, they had that Paw Patrol movie, they have Mayor of Kingstown as they work on it, doing the extended Taylor Sheridan universe. Also interesting about Paramount Plus and the whole Viacom streaming venture is that they have Pluto TV, another one of these free TV services that is sort of underneath Paramount Plus and is available at that free tier if you don't want to pay the currently $4.99 per month that Paramount Plus is. Speaking of price points that are definitely going to go up in the near future. I didn't mention Peacock. Peacock has 3 price tiers: free with commercials, $4.99 with some commercials, or $9.99 ad free. Elliot, where would you go between Peacock and Paramount Plus?
This is the battle of the two P's. Peacock, to me, again, the navigation is, again, it's just the little things that count. It's not the easiest to navigate, which is a big thing, especially when you're in the mood of trying to find something. It doesn't make it easier to find things on that app. You get very tired. You just fall asleep after 10 minutes. But I will say for Paramount Plus, just tying that into the conversation as far as films, we all know the whole 45-day window thing is becoming paramount for the next, foreseeable future. And knowing that you have a, Fast and Furious 10 coming out next year, available in 45 days, you have the whether it be, the next Mission Impossible or, Top Gun Maverick, that idea of like, I'm not still comfortable going to the theater. I can wait a month and a half or two before I can see it at home on my 65-inch 4K TV. So that to me is a big thing when it comes to the streaming war. Is not only am I able to watch my favorite shows, but the new releases. So that to me gives it a bit of an edge over Peacock, which the IPs that they have established are fine, but I think Paramount Plus is going to be the one that's going to end up on top between those two.
Peacock does have a lot in its catalog that Paramount is still trying to work on building up. Paramount, as has been widely reported, did some weird business in selling off the streaming rights to South Park over on HBO Max, to Yellowstone over on Peacock, and now they're working to try and bring all that stuff back. Meanwhile, Peacock knew what they were doing. They got The Office back off of Netflix. That is currently their most streamed show. Their second most streamed show is Yellowstone. What's that?
The Superfan episodes, they just added 2 or 3 scenes to each episode, so you have to go watch the episodes to see which one has added scenes. Genius. Genius.
That is pretty cool.
Yep. So I would personally go with Peacock right now. But what about you, Art? Where would you go between Peacock and Paramount Plus?
Listen, Zach. I hate Viacom with a passion. I think that they are absolute buffoons. They tried suing YouTube, got caught, ending up uploading to YouTube because they saw how much it was helping their channels. We've come to the point where all of these streaming services have the backings of studios, besides Netflix, obviously. You know, Disney has their own. Universal is Peacock. Paramount is Paramount Plus, obviously. They're so dumb they couldn't even come up with a name. That's why they just added the plus. If y'all remember, it was CBS All Access, and then they still had CBS All Access while they had Paramount. I do agree with you, Elliot. The best thing that they have is that they are in 45 days, the stuff's going straight there. Pick or choose sometimes, because I don't think F9 went on there, but A Quiet Place did. It's this really weird thing where they are depending on the box office of the movie, and if the box office of the movie doesn't reach a certain point, then it goes directly there. But Peacock's just smarter. Peacock has, the Trolls and the new Sing movie up for $24.99 just to rent. I think they are moving smarter. I think stealing Yellowstone from them was genius. They put up both Scream movies because there's a new Scream movie out right now. They move so well, and I've been observing them for the past year because I've seen so many investors and analysts say, "Oh, Peacock's not going to last." I was like, "Nah, you don't even know what you're talking about." Who had the Olympics last year? Who has all these sports things? Who has the Premier League, Zach? They are focused on way more than what anybody else thinks. I also love that for Peacock and Paramount, because that would be CBS and NBC, they stream their channels live. And they've been really good with that. And that includes a lot of sports coverage, which they were able to get a deal with, because we'll have a little sports talk in a little bit. There's a lot more fees that come with that. That was something that YouTube TV dealt with, where they didn't want to pay specific fees, and thus they got stripped of everything. Peacock, I think, is handling it to a degree that they haven't come in and punched like... I don't think we've seen the best of them yet. But the way that they're working in the background right now, I have to go Peacock. But I agree with y'all. Their service is terrible right now. But I'm banking on Universal. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
They made enough off of copyright claims that they got their service ready.
Yeah, I think, though, the things that Elliot is saying will be reflected when we look at Paramount Plus in the future. Like, they were a little bit late to pulling all their content together, but they're set to have a lot more going for them in 2022 and into the future. So
you mentioned the free thing, too. For Paramount, it's separate. For Peacock, it's already integrated within the service.
That's a good point. All right, our next matchup is between Tubi and Disney Plus. A big David and Goliath in the bracket. Art, this is your chance. Please preach the word of Tubi.
Of Tubi. It's Tubi. I understand what Disney is. Y'all are paying for that ability to be able to be on the hype. And you pay that $6.99 when that episode costs $3.99 to own. And you're getting like one a week. I understand Disney Plus. I do. It should win. But I'm going to go for Tubi for this reason and this reason only. We have now split between SVODs, PVODs, and AVODs. That just means, is it streaming? Are you paying for it? Or are you watching ads? They have made so much money. Tubi, along with Roku bought Quibi. And in the first week of Roku buying Quibi, they got 3 times more views than all of Quibi did for its shows the entire time they were running. Yep. People are willing to sit through ads. It's just the case if they don't have to pay for it. I mean, how many people have Hulu? Still has ads. Paramount, Peacock, they still have ads. They are paying money for stuff, and it still has ads. Obviously, that's for the premiere thing. But a lot of people don't mind waiting, and I think the amount of content that Tubi has, I find myself always, like in a monthly wrap-up or whatnot, mentioning the stuff that Tubi is hosting I'm sorry, I'm gonna go with Tubi, and Tubi picks up some new stuff here and there, and they're working on original content. I swear by Tubi.
Elliot, Tubi has 33 million monthly active users. Are you gonna tell? Are you gonna tell all of them that they're wrong?
Look, Art made a good argument there, man. But I mean, let's be honest. It's the mouse. It's the mouse. I wouldn't be surprised if Disney has some shares in Tubi and has some deals in the works to just take them over as they're doing the world. But you made some good stuff there, Art. But again, it comes back to, you know, in today's society, you know, our phones, our tablets, how am I going to keep my kids busy? How am I going to, you know, get back to that feeling of feeling like a kid again? It's Disney Plus. It has all the stuff we grew up on. It's continuing the legacy of the Star Wars, of the Marvels of the world, the original, you know, just 10 minutes before we went live, Tim Allen's coming back to play Santa Claus on the Disney Plus series.
What? Right.
So, yes. So it's doing stuff like that. Pixar,
Art's going to change his answer.
Pixar movies are going straight to Disney Plus now, which sucks.
Like that,
but,
though.
you know, having that, I'm not a fan of that as well. But it's Disney, man. It's Disney Plus. Again, Tubi's doing this thing, but Disney Plus is the mouse. I can't say no to the mouse.
Yeah.
You're right.
I mean, look, I'm not an MCU guy. I'm not a Star Wars guy.
The biggest franchise.
I'm not even really like a Disney animated person guy. And yet there's still some stuff for me on Disney Plus, you know? Like I go and I dive into those Simpsons archives, or I check out the latest Pixar movie because I am a Pixar fan as much as I'm not a fan of that strategy. Like I'm still going to watch them because I want to watch the movies. I really do. Like, Tubi is a really cool service, and I use it a lot more. I might even use it more than Disney Plus. But
Tubi?
I just think Tubi, yeah, because I don't spend that much time on Disney Plus.
I'm telling you, bro.
But like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just into the hype. I gotta catch the new episode when it drops on Wednesday at midnight or something. I don't know, man. I'll go Disney Plus here.
When Disney costs $99.99,
they got good documentaries too, man. They got the rescue.
y'all will see that Tubi.
Yeah.
When y'all have an installment payments on Disney Plus, you will come back to Tubi.
Our next matchup is Crunchyroll versus the Criterion Collection. Now, Crunchyroll, I was surprised to learn, has 120 million registered users.
Yes, sir.
Which sounds like a huge amount until you realize only 5 million of them are paid subscribers, but still, people are registered and watching anime through Crunchyroll. It's a huge platform, the best platform, undoubtedly, if that is the type of content that you're looking for. On the other hand, Criterion Collection, which is not developing their own originals aside from some of those special features that you get on different Criterion DVDs, is like a cinephile's dream with their access to deep filmographies from classic filmmakers and iconic films from around the world, black and white and color from ages ago or more recently. It's really kind of just which niche fandom are you more interested in? Elliot, I don't know. Are you a classic movies guy or an anime guy?
Classic movies.
Are you
for
neither
me.
guy?
Well, I would say if I were to choose between the two, it's definitely classic movies. Crunchyroll, I have so many friends that are just steeped in the lore of animes and mangas, and I want to get into the world. I just haven't had the proper guidance to get into that universe. Time, exactly, man. I hear so many people talking about so many great animes that's out right now, Attack of Titans and Demon Slayers and all that different stuff, but I just haven't put the foot into the water quite yet. But when it comes back to just, again, that nostalgia, the classic films, the films that get underappreciated, I think Criterion has that. You said it perfectly, Zach. It's the niche. It's the which niche do you find and appreciate more? And for me, it's Criterion, but I cannot ignore that anime is where it's at, and Crunchyroll having that availability is huge. But I think I'm gonna go with the underdog with Criterion on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just going to be the case for all three of us. That's just where our preferences lie, and like it's not so much Crunchyroll's fault. Like somebody else is going to be voting. And,
number one, yeah.
Yeah, it might be their number one, but
the fact they go 95.5 shows you how much money they're making, because they're making more money off of people watching an exuberant amount of ads than them paying the price. That's crazy.
Right. Yeah. Interestingly, I realized when I matched them up, both cost $99.99 for a year. Criterion costs $1 more per month, but if you do that yearly package, they're interchangeable. So it really is like, just which fandom are you allegiant to? All right, our next matchup is between HBO Max and the Shudder AMC Plus Sundance Now package. You can get all three of those streaming services for a lowly $8.99 per month, which is pretty cool because it's access to a bunch of different stuff. AMC Plus, you get some really great TV shows, including they had The North Water last year, Gangs of London the year before that. On Sundance Now, they've got some interesting indie films and a few shows of their own, like The Little Drummer Girl, which I've heard really great reviews of. And then Shudder is just every horror fan's dream service. They've got an endless supply of gore and slasher and whatever you need. Stuff like Psycho Goreman or Fried Berry that we've talked about on Intercut. Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched, maybe the best documentary of last year. Hellbender, a really cool movie from Fantasia that's coming out early in 2022 on Shudder. And all of that for just $8.99 a month in that bundle. Whereas on HBO Max, they've got nearly 70 million global subscribers and that HBO brand name. Art, where do you go between HBO Max and the AMC Plus bundle?
HBO Max. I know Shudder's got it going, but like for the other ones, you had mentioned some shows on AMC and Sundance. Instead of paying for that monthly, like you could just buy it. Just buy, because the amount of shows that they come up with, it's like it's 2 a year that I want to see. I might as well just buy that. Whereas while Shudder is fantastic, all the horror that you're finding there, you're bound to also have it on HBO. Plus the HBO series that people are hyped for. Yeah. They have the event things that people are coming in for weekly. Last year's deal was fantastic, and even though they're not doing it this year, you know that once that HBO movie plays in theaters, it'll come home to HBO Max. All the DC stuff. So I hope that package grows, but HBO Max right now.
Elliot, you gonna go the same way?
Yeah, it's HBO for me as well. We'll with it moving on, we'll get more into the depth of my fandom of HBO in general. But like Art said, man, with being a horror fan, I remember where Shudder first came out. I was like beyond excited to see all these obscure horror films and things that go under the rug and kind of missed out. So I love that, and I feel so bad for AMC because it was the Breaking Bad days. It was when Walking Dead and Mad Men were just killing the TV ratings, but unfortunately those days are kind of behind. I know they do have some great original content, but it does make me a little sad that it used to be, in the conversation with HBO, but times have changed.
They gave it to Netflix instead of building the streaming service early.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, probably the number one thing they would regret now. But they are working on building that content back up. They recently partnered with Vertical so that they are going to get some first-run movies. I think Silent Night, that Keira Knightley one, is available on AMC Plus, and they're going to have some more heading into 2022. So, again, maybe this is one that will grow in the next year and be a bigger contender then. Our next matchup is between two of the services available in the Disney bundle. It's Hulu versus ESPN Plus. Hulu has almost 40 million subscribers, and aside from the slew of second-run cable TV shows, you got a bunch of great indie movies and stuff like that on the service, but they've also started picking up their own films. Back in 2020, Palm Springs was a huge hit. They're developing some of their own shows. Stuff like Pen 15 is one of my favorite comedies. ESPN Plus, on the other hand, hard to argue against them as anything but the worldwide leader in sports. I guess that's why they've given themselves that name. But they're also trying to do some more than just give you basic sports content. They are into these burgeoning documentary field. There's the original series Tom Brady's Man in the Arena that they've been hyping up a lot now, and one of our favorites, Theo Anthony, has a short on the service as well that I highly, highly recommend. Elliot, I know you're a sports guy. Would you go with ESPN Plus over Hulu, though?
I'll say this about Hulu. They, as you mentioned, the last 2020 with Palm Springs was a great original film. There's another Pete Davidson film that's slipping my mind right now that I really enjoyed.
Big Time Adolescence.
Big Time Adolescence. Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
That movie.
the original shows they offer have caught my eye. I'm really looking forward to the Pam and Tommy series. I'm surprised it wasn't turned into a movie, but I'm just from the effects, the practical effects they use on Lily James alone is just intriguing enough to make me tune in. So I do appreciate Hulu Plus, but as a kid that grew up in the world of sports, football and basketball, it's literally what I watch before I go to bed. It's what I watch when I wake up in the morning. So, and being such, I'm not as ingrained in sports as I used to be, but it's just like watching ESPN. It's just a feeling it brings. I got my protein shake and my cereal. It's just something I like to watch, So I'm going to go with ESPN with this one, just being a sports fanatic. And also, like you mentioned, the docs that they have there are great as well. Watching, I'm a big, going back to being from Chicago, having the documentary with the Bulls and all that. That was like must-see TV. So I'll go with ESPN, but I respect Hulu. I respect them.
All right. Art, where are you going to go?
I would like ESPN because they have their 30 for 30s. I mean, they have the whole collection there, but they don't let you watch the ESPN live games. That is where they're dropping the ball. They are also going to have competition with, I don't know how it's pronounced, the DAZN one, DAZN.
The Zone, weirdly.
Oh, The Zone.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so, wow. The Zone, okay. We'll remember that from now on. They have a big Sundance one coming out right now, La Guerra Civil, that's directed by
La Guerra Civil.
Eva Longoria. She's going to be doing that one, so they're working on also having live content for sports and then also documentary style stuff. So I'm going to be interested to see how that competition goes. But for right now, I'm only going to go Hulu, not just because of the shows and what they have going on, but you can get ESPN Plus on Hulu. You can't get Hulu on ESPN Plus.
That's a good point.
Interesting argument. It's really hard to even compare these two because you're getting just such different content.
Yeah.
Part of me is inclined to go ESPN here because it is the service that I definitely use more. But like, I don't know. It's a movies and TV podcast, so maybe it's just better to go Hulu so we can talk about Hulu. Yeah. I don't know. It could go either way. Maybe the real answer is the Disney bundle, but I'll go Hulu here. All right, our last first round matchup is between Showtime Anytime, or is it just Showtime, and Amazon Prime Video. Showtime is available for $10.99 a month, and they've got a whole bunch of interesting TV shows from Your Honor to Yellow Jackets, which Art and I have been watching a lot of recently.
Very good.
They got a show called Super Pumped, which is about Uber, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Kyle Chandler, and Uma Thurman, coming soon. They've also got an interesting deal with A24, where they're going to be running some of their films. They got The Humans Day and Date. That's one of my favorite movies from last year. They're streaming Zola right now as well. Amazon, on the other hand, is one of the biggest companies in the world, and in April of 2021, Jeff Bezos said that more than 175 million Amazon Prime members had streamed shows or movies from the service in the past year. maybe just for 15 minutes, but Prime memberships are $12.99 per month, but only $8.99 per month if you just want to do the video and not the whole Amazon package. Anybody want to go Showtime here, or are we all going with Amazon? What do you think, Art?
Go Amazon. But Showtime's good. You're right. The A24 deal is great. It is hands down the worst to navigate. Y'all were venting about Peacock and Paramount. It is hands down the worst to navigate.
It's pretty bad.
Your list is on the side, and then you can't click on the thing. It'll play the episode, then you have to press menu to see the other episodes. They have a porn section just out in the open called After Dark right there. There's no accounts you can share at all. Damn it, Showtime. They just made it by this much over Stars.
Amazon's UI isn't that much better.
It's not.
To be honest, though. True. And you'd think, given that they're like a gigantic technology company, that it might compete with Netflix.
Yeah.
You're trying to watch Invincible into buying socks. I feel you, but still, it's better than Showtime's. Damn it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of cool stuff on Showtime. They deserve a spot in this 16, but
they do.
But maybe not in the final 8.
Yeah.
I agree. I used to look at Showtime back in the day as like the little cousin of HBO with the original content. But they've billions, and I know the revival of Dexter. And back when I used to watch Dexter a lot, that was my go-to. But I don't watch Showtime as often as I used to.
You know how you can tell that Showtime is actually like it's important in the industry is the upcoming Los Angeles Lakers show from Adam McKay and John C. Reilly. They switched the name from Showtime to Winning Time to avoid that confusion.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, so we'll get into the second round in just a moment, but we would like to thank the InterCutie Plus members who are our Patreon patrons supporting the show. They are Jessica, Tim, Garrett, Ewan, Tushar, Cademan, Connor, and of course the producer level patron known only as Awkward. Thanks again for the support, and a reminder that you too can become a member of the InterCutie Plus team over at patreon.com/intercutpod, where you can sign up for patron benefits like early access to Intercut episode outlines, access to private channels on the Intercut Discord, which is available in the description link down below, and an invitation to our monthly patron Google meetings where you can come yell at Art and I for our bad takes and tell us why Crunchyroll deserved to win this bracket. Art, what's your favorite part of supporting shows on Patreon?
My favorite part about supporting the show on Patreon is that every month we get to test y'all cinema knowledge, argue about movies face to face. Because, the comments, that's one thing. You don't know if we're going to read it. But when we're right in front of you, you could be like, listen here, bub. Plus, it helps us make the show. With all of the content that we're going to be covering, not just with all these streaming services, it goes directly back into these right here. It helps pay for these, it helps pay for the Sundance festivals and everything else. And the best part is just talking to you.
Exactly. All right, we are going to get back into this bracket with our second round. It's Netflix versus Apple TV Plus in the first matchup. Netflix, which had such hit shows in 2021 as You, Money Heist, and Squid Game, such blockbuster movies as Red Notice, Army of the Dead, and The Mitchells vs. the Machines, Oscar contenders like The Power of the Dog, The Lost Daughter, Don't Look Up, versus Apple TV Plus, which had The Shrink Next Door, Foundation, The Morning Show Season 2, beloved comedies like Mythic Quest and Ted Lasso, and some Oscar contenders of its own in Coda, which was the largest acquisition out of Sundance ever, and The Tragedy of Macbeth. Elliot, I'm going to make you make the hard decision first. Are you going quality or quantity?
That is the question of all questions, especially when it comes to these streaming apps. Man, what do we say about Apple TV Plus? I think the thing that it has against it right now is when it comes to those shows you mentioned, Foundation, Ted Lasso's of the world, which I think word of mouth definitely brought that show to life, and deservingly so. Marketing. I feel like the marketing for Apple TV Plus is such a enemy right now on that service because they have so much great programming, and that's where Netflix wins to me because it's just like 2 weeks before it drops, it catches the zeitgeist, it catches the Twitter feeds, it catches the Instagrams, it has its big movie stars, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Gal Gadot, Ryan Reynolds on their platforms preaching, hey, go check out this movie, and it becomes the most watched streaming movie of all time. So although I do love the quality that Apple TV Plus has, I just don't think they're yelling in the microphone loud enough to get people on their platform to watch the amazing stuff that they have out there. So I got to go with number one right now, which is Netflix. But listen, Apple, if you can get that advertising going and continue to put out the great products you do, they might be taking the reins in a couple of years. But right now, I still got to go with Netflix.
Yeah. They paid like $25 million for Coda and barely put a trailer out on TV.
They saved all that money for the FYC ads.
Yeah, exactly. They did one of our favorite documentaries, Boys State, a little bit dirty. Are you going to hold that against Apple TV Plus, or are you excited about the future? They've got Alfonso Cuarón movie coming in 2022. Cool. They've got a Scorsese movie coming in 2022. They've got a Lord and Miller show coming in 2022, a Jason Segel show.
Good for them. When those get here, we'll talk again. In the meantime, I know that we were talking about quantity over quality, but in that quality, yes, there is a lot of poop. But damn, you mentioned some great quality in Netflix. Power of the Dog, one of my favorite movies of the year. You had shows. I think that's the one thing. You have things that come out of Netflix that explode, that are not connected to a big star power. Everything that's coming out of HBO, bless it, and Disney, it's meant to be big. No one expected Squid Game to be big.
Yeah.
No one expects the cringy stuff that blows up. Like, only Netflix is doing that for unknown things.
Here's a question for you guys. Do you think Squid Game could have happened on any other service?
No, and you know it too. You find it within you. You know it to be true. Only through Netflix.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, as much as Netflix might frustrate me at times, and as much as I'm trying to develop my brand as Apple TV Plus's number one fanboy, I think Netflix still has it beat here. All right, we're going with Peacock versus Disney Plus in our next matchup. Peacock, as you mentioned, they do have some sports options as well, and in 2022 they'll be getting the Winter Olympics, which is a pretty big deal to some folks. Disney Plus, on the other hand, is coming into the new year with another Pixar movie, Turning Red, planning to be released on the platform. The Mandalorian Season 3, as well as some other Star Wars shows. The Obi-Wan Kenobi show, I think, is set for later this year. And Miss Marvel. Some more Marvel shows coming to Disney Plus as well. So, Elliot, where are you going to go between Peacock and Disney Plus?
This is where it comes down to the fandom of the IPs. And yes, Peacock, big sports fan. Don't watch the Olympics that much, but I know globally, I mean, it's, obviously all the eyes are watching that. But going back to just me being a fan of Marvel and Star Wars, you mentioned Obi-Wan Kenobi, Zach. I mean, that has to be the most, for a Star Wars fan like myself, that has to be the most exciting new up-and-coming project that they have announced in the last few years. I cannot wait to see Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader another round. Can't wait. And Deborah Chow is an incredible director, so I'm really excited for that. But and also to being ingrained in Marvel. I mean, the shows they got coming out this year, and particularly Moon Knight, sign me up. Really looking forward to it. So, but I will not neglect what Art said in round one with Peacock. A lot of great things to be said about that streaming platform. They had the day in, day out with Halloween Kills, and I'll imagine they'll still have some integrations with the movies being available in that 45-day window. But again, it's the mouse, and they have a sniper right in front of me right now, so I can't go get some for this round right now.
I agree with
you. What about you, Art?
No, I agree with Elliot. It has to be Disney Plus. Like you had mentioned Halloween Kills, right? That came out same day and date. People still kind of went to go see it in the theater. I think Universal still has its foot so much in theaters that's why a lot of their content is struggling at the moment. Right now, their biggest acquisitions would be stealing from other shows as they build up their sports. For a lot of other people, the bundle is already in that Disney, Hulu, ESPN, so they're getting their sports already in there when they're getting their Disney Plus. For people outside of the U.S., like Zach was saying earlier, they don't just have their family content, they get their rated R content within their Disney Plus also. And when they do a release in theaters, Eternals is back on the platform now, just like Shang-Chi was. It explodes again. I don't think any other service is doing that. Like HBO, once the movies are coming back, several have come back. Like when Judas and the Black Messiah came back, Malignant is going to come back. They fizzled out in their first go. Like when Space Jam came back, no one was talking about it in the second resurgence. Disney has found a way to do that every time they put it back on their service. So, they're just going to grow. It's Disney versus Universal.
For sure.
And it's going to be Disney.
For sure. I do want to shout out the comedy programming on Peacock. Like, I think comedies don't get as much love from the streaming services, but they have made a lot of really interesting ones. I liked Girls Five Eva a lot. I liked We Are Lady Parts. I liked MacGruber more recently. I think that one's hilarious. So I'm glad that they're continuing that NBC tradition of making those really fun half hours. And I hope that they can continue. Maybe that can be kind of like a little carved out space they can make for themselves, is maybe the place for those half-hour comedies.
Yep.
Next matchup is between probably the two best streaming services right now to watch classic movies. HBO Max, which has got that whole TCM collection, and Criterion collection, which has got that whole Criterion collection. And, it's a little bit hard to match these two up, given that one is producing new content and has the content library, and the other just has the content library. Art, I think you mentioned earlier, the biggest thing going for Criterion against maybe all the other services is they do have that plethora of special features and commentaries and ways to dive deeper on those classic films. Are you going to take it over HBO Max, though?
Goodbye, Criterion. My final words for you is I appreciate you giving film school to students, to anybody who wants it for $8.99. It is not just the movies. You curate a watch list, a schedule for people to watch double headers on. It is a beautiful thing you release every month. They do have like one new release that they pick up from a festival, but it's the extra features. It's you're really diving in and teaching people the ins and outs from directors and critics and everything. I love you for that. HBO Max. Has to be.
Yeah, we'll go with HBO Max in that matchup. But if you were a film student, you should go with Criterion Collection.
Beautiful eulogy that Art just gave us there. Great final words for RIP.
Yeah. Our last matchup of the Elite Eight is Hulu versus Amazon Prime. Hulu, as Elliot mentioned, they've got Pam and Tommy coming up in 2022, as well as a bunch of other TV shows. How I Met Your Father is premiering very soon, or may have just premiered. Amazon, on the other hand, has some pretty big plans for 2022, including the return of shows like The Boys, Invincible, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and the long-awaited Lord of the Rings series finally coming around. Art, does Hulu have anything against Amazon right now?
I mean, how much y'all like Handmaidens? Because that's really the discussion we're having here, guys. I think it's Prime. Another thing about Prime is we were talking about the IMBD TV feature that they have, which is that is their free service. And while you're on the website, it pretty much just takes you to the IMDb TV free ad watch space. They also own IMDb, which is another thing. So whenever you're on IMDb and you're like, damn, they're really pushing this show from Prime. Hello, that would be the reason why. I think I have found myself loving a lot more the shows from Prime, yet I completely forgot about Mrs. Maisel. I love Maisel. I love Invincible. And I don't think they've really hit it big with a lot of these shows that they spend a lot of money on. I don't know how The Wheel in Time is doing, if any of y'all are checking that one out. But I know they want Thrones-level success with Lord of the Rings. That would be the only thing to change my mind. I have not seen a pressure on a service more than what Prime's about to go through with this show.
Yeah,
I'm going Prime.
The only thing here is that I feel like Prime puts out a lot of things that are kind of mid. If you look at their whole selection of movies from 2021 with stuff like Electrical Life of Louis Wayne, The Tomorrow War, Cinderella, which is a little bit worse than mid.
At least they get people to talk.
It's
true.
I guess, maybe.
Because the advertisements on the packaging.
Well, they also sometimes just like drop a show and don't give it the love that they should. Like, hello, you have 10 hours of beautiful Barry Jenkins content. Like, please let me know that the Underground Railroad is available out there to watch. Small X could not get an ad for Small X.
They have them.
Well, I don't understand it.
They have them though, and that's what I am judging. That they have the quality content there. But I agree with you. The ads.
Yeah.
Why? I don't get it.
Yeah. And Hulu does have it does have all those second run cable shows. It does have all those neon movies. I would argue maybe Hulu is the better free service of the two.
Yeah,
it's tough. I might choose Hulu here just to make it difficult for Elliot.
Yeah. So I'll say this about Hulu. I'm ultimately going to boil it down to Amazon, just because there are a lot of great programming, and like Art just said, Underground Railroad, Small Axe, it didn't get the hype that it should have deserved, but it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
It found a place, and hopefully people can find it and discover it as time goes by. But I will say with Hulu, and going back to the conversation I brought up earlier with AMC using to be in the zeitgeist with the Breaking Bads of the world and Mad Men, you do have FX, which I think is one of the best like content, Fargos of the world, Legions of the world. Next, I think this year or maybe next year, Noah Hawley's Aliens TV show. So you do have that FX on Hulu feature.
Atlanta's coming back.
Atlanta's coming back in March. So and again, the FX on Hulu, when it drops the night before, you have it immediately on Hulu. That is exciting. But again, Amazon is going to win for me. But Hulu has some good things coming for it. And again, I'm an FX fan. I love what they bring to the platform, the conversation that they add to the zeitgeist of shows and stuff. But it's Amazon for me on this one.
Damn it, Elliot! You brought up FX. He reminded me Neon. Y'all making me almost change my decision.
All right, I guess just by a hair, we're gonna go with Amazon in that matchup. Getting into our final four, let's start it out with probably the two biggest names in streaming right now, the ones fighting for the title. Yeah. They're going to have to just fight for a final spot here. It's Netflix versus Disney Plus. I want to remind y'all that Netflix has some really interesting stuff coming around the corner. Maybe less interesting to me personally. They are doing that Extraction sequel and Enola Holmes sequel, and they just announced some more Red Notice sequels that are shooting back to back. Of more interest to me is Knives Out 2, which is a Netflix movie now, lest you forget that Netflix spent like $200 million to buy the Rian Johnson franchise.
The director of Stab 8? No way.
And also, speaking of people we like, Guillermo del Toro's got his Cabinet of Curiosities coming to Netflix in 2022. There's always going to be some interesting content around the corner on Netflix, whereas Disney, they're always reliable for the franchises you know and love, unless you maybe don't know and love them. Art, where are you going to go between Netflix and Disney Plus?
We were talking about this earlier. I love my dude in a helmet out in space in the desert shows. Those are really cool. I'm going to go with Netflix.
Elliot, how about you? You probably spend more time on Disney Plus than either of us.
It's funny. So before we went live, or before you had the conversation started, Disney sent me my recap of 2021, and it showed me all the stuff I watched. My MCU. I'm an MCU fan, as it said. I watch my MCU shows a lot, and I'm a big MCU fan. I'm really excited to see the integration of TV shows, movies, continuing the Easter eggs and connection between one world to the next, but. Netflix, it still has my heart. Stranger Things, next week, Ozark, season 4, part 1. I can't wait to get back into that world. I'm excited to learn more about Sandman, the acquisition of that. And even though Disney has the more established superhero content, the Star Wars content, I see Netflix bringing in a Mark Millar and trying to bring in some other smaller comic book characters and things of that nature. So I think Netflix is going to have the win for me, especially when you mentioned, Zach, the movies. Kings or Knives Out 2 and 3 and The Rock and Gal Gadot and all those actors coming to the platform, and Chris Hemsworth doing his thing, and can't forget my Russo brothers are coming out with The Gray Man, which is going to be this $200 million action flick with Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans and that incredible cast. So I'm going Netflix with this because I will say right now the adult content can be found on Netflix, while Disney is still trying to figure out a way of how do we have the kids and the adults on one platform. So
there you go.
Netflix on that.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that Disney Plus has kind of segmented their different content to different services. Like it makes there be a reason to like subscribe to Disney Plus or subscribe to Hulu. It's cool that they have different brand identities, but it does limit you at some point, and maybe that just like all-inclusive approach to Netflix helps it win out here.
Yeah. Parental locks, by the way, that's the answer.
Exactly. I wrote in my notes that I kind of feel like Netflix has effectively replaced cable, because there's always something to watch, even if it rarely feels like it's something you necessarily like have to watch right now. Yeah. But that omnipresence is hard to deny. So Netflix will make it to our finals, and it'll be up against either HBO Max or Amazon Prime Video.
So the final is Netflix versus HBO Max. If y'all just want to get there,
you're going with HBO.
Easy.
Yeah. I guess you're not as hyped on a potential Lord of the Rings show as Bezos, apparently?
I'd rather see something that I know. No, I'd rather see the prequel to Thrones, which I know is at least going to hit at the same level from the previous production, when none of us know what's going to happen for Rings yet.
All right.
Yep.
Elliot, you're the same way?
That was going to be my argument with that fantasy battle, something that we obviously know from the movies with Lord of the Rings and a $1 billion production, which is ridiculous.
Insane.
But when Art mentioned, we already know kind of, even though taking the 8th season of Game of Thrones out of the equation, we know what we can kind of expect with that. And I'm going to bring this up in the next round if HBO does make it. I think when it comes to video game movies not working, Last of Us will be the template for video games being on streaming services versus it being movies, 8 hours worth of game and 16 hours into a game and condensed to a 2-hour film. Last of Us will be the mold of TV working more with the video games than theaters. So I'm going to go with HBO on this one.
Your point. Good point.
I'm going backwards now, but bringing up the idea of video game adaptations. One thing we didn't mention about Showtime is they've got that long-awaited Halo show coming in 2022.
That's really good
that
for
might
them.
be another reason that Showtime ends up being
Well, they could fix
end up
their
sticking around.
navigation by then.
Speaking of navigation, we're going to put HBO Max into the finals.
Yep.
I kind of feel like they've fixed some of their navigation issues. I was reading that they were fixing their PlayStation 5 app, is one of the first apps to kind of get redone. And I've noticed like a huge difference in streaming on there since then. So maybe not facing some of the same difficulties it faced this time last year, but facing a difficult matchup in the finals versus Netflix. Elliot, you said you are a big HBO fan.
Yeah.
Do you think HBO Max is the best streaming service right now?
So I guess to start the whole conversation, my big thing was what do I look for is price. So we have $14.99, which I pay $17.99 for the 4K Netflix. So I think pricing Netflix a little bit higher,
about even.
So navigation wise, I think I got to go with Netflix on that battle. As far as going back to me being a comic book fan, I go back to HBO Max and just yesterday the premiere of Peacemaker and the announcement of
all that DC.
A Green Lantern show and the Batgirl, Blue Beetle, which I know now are going back to the movies, but of course I think we're going to get more of that Gotham universe on HBO Max. Speaking of Gotham, Jeffrey Wright's show and Robert Pattinson,
and
might
even
make
the
an appearance.
Even the Batman movie, if it's not going to be day and date like their movies were last year,
it's going to come
home. It will
home.
be on streaming on HBO Max in 2022.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
And there's so much potentiality of that world being on a streaming platform, which again, that's what made me love HBO. It's the Sopranos of the world. It's the Game of Thrones of the world. And I think we're going to get back into that narrative with some of those shows we just mentioned. And going back to my last round conversation about The Last of Us, I think that show, because that's my favorite video game of all time, I think that show has the potential to be the next Game of Thrones water cooler talk. Did you see the last episode? And building off of that world and seeing maybe other video games make it onto that platforms. But going back to that Netflix thing, man, when you think of the movies, and we all know all the movies aren't that great, but every now and then they hit you over the head with a movie that everyone's watching. I think of the Bird Box conversation from a couple years ago. I think of just the Distraction a couple years ago, and the stuff they have lined up. It's incredible what they're doing. And again, $200 million action flick with the Russo brothers on their platform is something you can't blink your eye at. So, this is a tough one, guys. This is a tough one. I think I got to go with where my heart originally started, and with HBO Max. But then I think about when Netflix, this whole conversation started because of Netflix, streaming wars, streaming platforms. It started with Netflix. This is a tough one, guys. This is a tough one. I don't know. You guys, I'm going to let one of you guys. I got to still
He
think
deferred.
about it. I got to think.
You only make it harder for us because on top of that, it's not even the big stuff. Netflix also has Romas, Irishmans, Marriage Stories. They have stuff that Criterion is then picking up after the fact. Like it really can come down to either two. But I'm gonna hit you with this one, Elliot. Yeah, Netflix started it.
Yeah.
But that's just because they called it streaming. HBO slogan before that in the late 90s was, it's not TV, it's HBO, baby. And I'd like to argue that they may have had it first. The technology just wasn't out there. They didn't have the big internet services that were going on with it. And I think out of all of the shows that are out there, HBO being able to expand right now with Max is going to be able to allow it to grow to an exponential rate. Let's not forget that the Discovery pickup may be an integration that they have later on as well. And I think when it comes to the reality shows, Netflix is there. It's getting there. Yeah. But it has no competition against the Discovery shows. And the more that they integrate it now that it's Warner Discovery, I think that deal that was made last year where we all just woke up to it is done for a reason. And then just in terms of its platform, yeah, it's not as easy to navigate as Netflix, but at least I get A to Z. I can see everything that's on the platform. So there's different aspects like that. And the day and date thing, I think was a really big push for last year that I thought was fantastic. They now at least have a deal with theaters. However Netflix came in full throttle, they pissed off way too many theaters, so you can't even see their projects up there. But HBO still has, or Warner Bros. Still has a good relationship with theaters. They still have their ability to be able to build their brands, and I like their hubs. They, I think, are doing the hubs correct, where you got their DC. They had Crunchyroll. I don't know why they lost it. The TCM and all the other stuff that they got going on. I am sticking to HBO Max.
Whew, I think you might have sold me, Art. And I think when you were bringing up the day and date thing, I thought about one of my top 5 movies of last year was Dune. And I think of Denis Villeneuve and building out that world. And we're supposed to get the Mother series and maybe other series exploring that universe, which gets me excited for, again, the integration of you can talk about a film and then watch the TV show at the same time. So I think you might have sold me on that aspect with HBO being the originator of TV talk.
Let me go nerdy. HBO's the only one who will change the aspect ratio. Like they did it. Yeah. Now when you go watch BVS again, it'll actually change the aspect ratio for you. Where Justice League is doing it as well. I don't know if they'll ever release a version of Dune like that for us. Obviously, it's not the same because of our TVs aren't built like an IMAX, but they're at least giving you the ability to watch that. I'm not praising Warner Brothers because they're sometimes really crazy with their filmmakers, but sometimes they slip in and they give them creative freedom out of nowhere. So I do appreciate that. You sold me on
another point, Art. If the Snyderverse, for those that want to see the world continue, that might be the outlet for the Snyderverse to continue is on HBO Max.
So HBO?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of great content with HBO. Even with the Max brand, like I know, Art, that's something that you and I were talking about at first, is how there was a bit of confusion over like, are they diluting the HBO brand? But I think even Max is now producing some really interesting stuff. Station 11, which is maybe going to be my favorite show of 2022, is an HBO Max show.
Wow.
They've got really good stuff in the pipeline. They're now catching up to the movies that are coming out. Soderbergh is making Kimmy soon for HBO Max directly. And so there might be like big movies coming out like every week as Netflix likes to advertise on Netflix, but there's big stuff coming out on HBO too. And another thing is just, I don't know why recently I found myself going back and watching more older films than I normally do, but like you can't find old movies on Netflix. Like they've got some stuff from the 2000s and then a few things from like the 90s and then that's it.
Point.
Yeah.
You get stuff from every era. You can go back to Charlie Chaplin on HBO Max. You can go back to the great films of the Hollywood 70s on HBO Max. And you can go to the big films that are blockbusters today like Dune now on HBO Max. Yep. I think you just get a variety of quality content. It's not, there's a plethora. It's maybe not so much that you're drowning in it the way that Netflix sometimes feels. And it's good stuff. So
I have another one for you.
Yeah.
Do you think the worst content that HBO Max is making, the worst of it, is worse than the worst of what Netflix gives you?
Absolutely not.
Because people get mad when Netflix drops something irritating. People just ignore it when HBO Max does it.
Yeah. Yep. You'll never have to pay for She's the Man if you're subscribing to HBO Max.
Or the greatest trilogy of it all, The Kissing Booth, right? That's
exactly
the trilogy that we all needed.
I also like that they took Pennyworth, right? I think it was from Epix. That was like an Epix exclusive, and like it's premiering over on HBO now. Yep. So they're even like collecting the stuff and they're bringing it back home.
And they might, talking to the other TV platform, CW, if that rumor is to be true, that they're going to be kind of canning or selling them off and just having all the DC content in one hub with HBO Max is something that I know a lot of fans like
crazy.
myself is looking to see. Lois and Clark,
definitely.
Something to be, or Superman and Lois on HBO Max would be great.
That'd be smart.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm okay with us giving the belt to HBO Max here. I think it's had a really good 2021. I think the first place I check for content because I just think their stuff's good. It's if I can't find something there, I'm sure I'll find something on Netflix, but I think I'll find something better on HBO Max.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad we could all agree with that one.
Been here since before streaming.
Let me throw out an alternate idea, though, now that we are at a final. Elliot, if it was down to HBO Max versus the Disney Bundle, so you get Disney, Hulu, and ESPN Plus, which way do you think you would go?
Whew, you just had to throw that at me. Man, I would probably go Disney Plus. Not only because of the Marvel, Star Wars stuff, but when we talked about the FX on Hulu option, obviously the sports option, it gives me a little bit more variety in that sense. So I would probably do the Disney Plus bundle over the HBO Max.
Pretty good bang for your buck if you're getting all three of those services. Yeah. Art, what about you?
I'd still go HBO, but in terms of DC Marvel, not pitting the two together, but the way you get the content, I think you're getting the content better through Disney, whereas you'd have to wait on HBO for it, in my opinion.
Yep.
Sports, obviously, you then have to lean back to Disney, but I like the content. I don't want to call it content. I like the shows and movies that are hosted on HBO a lot more. Yeah. So I'd have to go there. I'm looking forward to what they release a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's
an
ultimately
interesting
where
battle,
I go
right?
too. But yeah, it's
yeah.
I think that's a harder battle than HBO versus Netflix for sure.
Yeah.
It's clear that things are going to combine, right? Because there are bundles that have
There's too many.
Been there from the inception. I remember early on when Paramount was still Viacom CBS, they had that with a bundle, I think, with Showtime, because Showtime is under Paramount. It's under Viacom as well. So I think it's only a matter of time before they start combining things again. Maybe that's why they're not putting the time for Showtime, because they want to combine it with Paramount Plus. We talked about Discovery and HBO. I think we're going to see these things kind of combine a little bit.
Merging, yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. We talked about how a lot of these services feel like they're trending upward. Is there any one that you feel is like maybe trending in the wrong direction or is getting itself in a position where maybe it will be one of those ones to be acquired by a bigger service? Art, is there one that jumps out to you?
The one that didn't even make
maybe
the list.
Stars.
Epics.
Yeah.
I think Stars will
Epics,
still stick
for
around
sure.
because of like what it is. First of all, those numbers are still boggling to us that we don't know who's.
Yeah.
Some people need to check their accounts. I don't think they know they're paying for it.
Comment below if you have Stars or maybe go check.
They're the only ones that have a lot of the what would have been the Weinstein, the Miramax stuff. They would have had the Sony productions. Like they have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. A lot of stuff is exclusive only to Stars. That said, though, it's Epix. Epix is getting stuff snatched from them left and right. I do not see them surviving. And personally, I just don't like Paramount. I'm sorry. On our official list that we have, I just don't like Paramount.
Yeah. I would be happy to see Paramount get absorbed in something larger. I don't know about
Well,
I
it
don't know
can't
about
because
you,
they're owned by
Elliot,
Viacom. That's the worst part about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know we mentioned earlier the Crunchyroll thing, huge numbers, but I'm surprised HBO Max did not, or HBO did not keep them, because that's
right.
That's kind of weird. So I don't know if Netflix comes in fourth quarter and makes that happen, which would be a game changer.
That would, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, a lot of interesting streaming services out there. Let us know what your favorites are. Maybe let us know what you're paying for and how many you're willing to pay for, because there's a lot, and there's got to be a limit for some people. So comment below or shoot us an email at intercutpod@gmail.com. I think we have time for a quick pick for the week, a quick recommendation for people at the end of this episode. Elliot, I don't know if you have any movies or TV shows you've been watching recently. I can start off though, with one that is going to be available on VOD pretty soon, and that is Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes, one of my favorite Film Fest movies from last year, the Japanese one-take time travel comedy. I just was so impressed and enthralled by this one. Just the timing it takes to make everything fit in so perfectly here. It's so perfectly, immaculately crafted and immensely fun. And you can tell they're just trying to bend and twist this premise of a TV that jumps 2 minutes into the future for every comedic possibility that you can get from it. I thought it was extremely effective. It's only 70 minutes long, so it doesn't overstay its welcome for me. It was really one of my favorite movies of the year last year, and is gonna be big contender for my best movies of 2022 so far when we get around to that list. Art, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about Compartment Number 6, which I know you caught more recently.
Yep, my 2 theater picks for the week would be that. I believe that's getting a theatrical if you have a nice little independent cinema. If you got Mubi, go! I don't know if that's the one that they're supporting this week, but definitely go see that in theaters. I thought that is a fantastic international feature that I hope makes the slot. Probably won't win, but I think that's one that definitely takes you on a journey. I loved following the characters. I want to rewatch that one again. Hopefully they re-up the link. But if you're also out there and you have the ability to catch Belle, I was able to snatch up this poster last night as well. Definitely go catch this one. A pretty good movie from the director, I believe, who did Wolf Children, if I'm not mistaken. I really like this one, dealing with VR. I had given that a shout out during the live streams. But if I may, I mean, it's only right out of all the services that we talked that I could do a little quick shout out. You got Shudder. Go watch yourself. Woodlands just came out this week. Yeah. If you got Showtime, watch the finale to Yellow Jackets. It's wrapping up this week. If you got Paramount, delete it. If you have Apple TV, you just got the brand new Tragedy of Macbeth from the Coen brothers. It's available crisp. It's so crisp on Apple TV, dude. It's fantastic. Definitely check that out. If you got the Disney Hulu bundle, Black Bear is out on Hulu. Ooh. Go check out that bad boy. We love this Aubrey Plaza thriller. If you have Prime, sorry, it's a Hotel Transylvania. There's nothing there. Netflix has the House one that I've been really looking forward to, as well as Cheer. I did start watching Cheer, and it was pretty solid. So all of those there. Ironically, I have nothing for HBO, and that's a weak cost to win.
Station 11. Station
11 finale. Thank you, Zach.
Euphoria. Yeah,
the finale is unreal.
Oh, Euphoria. See, there you go.
Euphoria. Yeah.
There you go. There's a lot. And the whole back catalog. Bet. Elliot, what do you got?
I cried so much at the Station 11 finale. Elliot, we don't need 16 recommendations from you, but what do you have?
I'll just go one, man. As far as movies go, and then probably the biggest movie for the rest of the month is Scream 5. Me and Art were talking about it before we went on here, and I really had a good time with it. I think if you're a fan of the franchise, you're going to really appreciate what the Silence production or Radio Silence production guys were able to bring to the film. A lot of new talent involved in the film. Obviously, legacy players in the movie, so I had a good time with that. And as far as shows go, I'm just preparing for next week, which is the return of Ozark. So if you guys haven't seen Ozark, which is, the whole, it's Breaking Bad all over again. Yeah, some similarities, but I think after last season, it kind of separated itself from that conversation. Not saying it's better than Breaking Bad, but it definitely has that same type of vibe.
It's doing its own thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely recommend people to catch up with that series for the part 1 premiere coming next week on Netflix. And then we talked Apple TV Plus. I'm a fan of M. Night Shyamalan's Servant. Servant Season 3 will be coming back next week. Very weird, trippy, 30-minute-ish type of show with some really solid performances, and just makes you scratch your head after each episode. So Servant will be coming back next week on Apple TV Plus. So those are some recommendations I have for you all.
Beautiful.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Elliot. That's about all for this weech's show. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd at ZShevich. That's ZSHEV as in Vimeo, ICH. Remember when Vimeo started doing original series? That was another. Maybe we got to do this bracket again with Vimeo.
I just need the studio links from Vimeo. That's it. Appreciate those.
Elliot, where can the people find more from you?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, Art, Zach, it's a pleasure to see you guys again. This bracket was awesome.
Such a pleasure,
to come
man.
back and have some other bracket conversations. But again, appreciate you guys having me on. You guys can find me on the YouTube platform under Movie Files, talking about some of the shows that we mentioned, movies that we talked about, having some live discussions about those, those IPs and those movies and shows. I try to be as active on social media as I can, with the Instagrams of the world at Movie Files, Twitter at Movie Files Live, and TikTok, man, I took a break from it for a little bit, but it's fun sometimes. It can be
Is it?
fun. So
Yeah,
if
you
you
liking
guys
it?
want,
Trying out the TikTok.
So I take my my 10, 15-minute reviews, kind of condensing into just my main thoughts, and then also I'm gonna start doing some like when movie news drop, just giving my thoughts on some of the Santa Claus coming back or Turning Red going straight to streaming. So little things like that is what you can find on TikTok. So check me out on that platform as well.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been curious about what's developing in the film world on TikTok, but I'm not so sure I'm allowed to explore it. I've got a little bit of gray in my hair now, so we'll see. Art, where can people find more from you?
You could find me ranting about the new Scream over on LME Explains on Twitter, on Letterboxd, on the YouTubes, but every week here, doing all these brackets and news and streams with our special guests on the Intercut Podcast.
You can listen to every episode of the Intercut Podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher. I like Overcast, and then make sure you're subscribed not just to the audio podcast, but to the video feed as well on youtube.com/IntercutPod, where you can catch our bright, smiling faces as we break down the latest in entertainment. Find new episodes of Intercut every Monday, and please leave us a comment, like the video. Consider heading over to iTunes to give us that much-requested 5-star review. And shout out to our listeners in Ireland for putting us on the TV and film podcast charts out there. Like our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. Support our Patreon. All of them are at Intercut Pod to get updates throughout the week from Art, from me, from Elliot, from all the guests that we feature here on Intercut. You can also come hang out with us in the Intercut Discord, which you can find a link to in the description notes for this show. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, it's pronounced ta-dum, not too dumb. I made that mistake.